Welcome, all teachers. I hope you all are doing excellent. Here we are, ready to venture into our next Shikshana Samrama webinar for English. Let us begin by looking into what this module has to offer us. For this webinar, we will try to achieve the learning outcomes for the topics and concepts that we will be teaching and are currently teaching in our classrooms. The learning outcomes used in the National Achievement Survey will also be taken up and catered to. And how will we try to achieve this? We will make this happen by exploring a variety of experiential teaching learning activities based on grammar concepts, some teaching ideas in poetry, and watching some video resources on the same concepts. These are the learning outcomes used in the National Assessment Survey and are monthly learning outcomes that are covered in the textbooks. The activities and concepts that we will be discussing today will be based on these. As we have already discussed, the concepts and activity ideas that we are going to explore will be from the categories of grammar, poetry, and language learning inputs to develop our own English speaking skills. Moreover, something that we request all the teachers to observe is that all the activities and ideas that we talk about today will be targeted to either introduce the concept at hand, explore the concept at hand, or evaluate the concept at hand. Every activity will have a sidebar that will inform us about its category. So please keep an eye on the sidebar at the edge of your screen so that it becomes easy for us to utilize every activity for the exact need of our classroom. This sidebar will give us quick information about the name of the topic or the concept being discussed. Below that, the sidebar will tell us whether the activity or the idea being discussed is an introductory activity, an exploratory activity, or an evaluatory activity, followed by the information on which grade or grades is the idea or concept applicable to. With all these things to guide us, let us jump into our first concept of nouns. Let us watch a video to help us briefly understand about nouns. Let's look at two types of nouns. The first one is common nouns. Common nouns are words used for non-specific places, persons, ideas, or objects. Common nouns are not capitalized. For example, the farmer is working hard. Can you identify the common noun in this sentence?
I think it is the word farmer.
Wonderful. The next sentence is, the students eat dinner at the restaurant. Can you identify the common noun here?
Are they the words students and restaurant?
Wonderful, they are.
What about the sentence, there are no trees in this village?
Both the words trees and village are common nouns here. In the same way, proper nouns are words that are used to signify a specific place, a specific person, or a specific object. We should remember that the first letter of a proper noun is always capitalized. Like, Radha is an astronaut.
The proper nouns in this sentence is Radha.
She owns a Samsung mobile.
And I think the proper noun here in this sentence is Samsung mobile.
Let's look at what happens when we have two or more nouns. Let us look at singular and plural nouns.
Hey, what is this thing that looks like a magnet?
This is an S magnet.
What does the S magnet do?
The S magnet attracts multiple nouns and creates plural nouns. Like apple gets attracted to the S and becomes apples.
Okay, so I'm going to add S to these words and make them plural nouns. Ships, trains, owls, helmets, photographs, and fans. Then what about words like, say, a bus?
Bus already ends with the letter S. For that, there is another special magnet called ES magnet. Whenever a word ends with an S, needs to be pluralized, we add the ES magnet that gets attached to the word and makes it a plural word like buses.
Okay, so when singular nouns end with CH, SH, S, SS, or X, we usually add an ES to form plural, right?
Yes. And some more examples of the same logic are bus becomes buses as we discussed, glass becomes glasses, brush becomes brushes, and watch becomes watches.
Now that we have looked into what nouns are, let us look at an activity idea with which we can introduce the concept to our learners in the classroom. The teacher can begin introducing the nouns by starting a small guided discussion using a simple question like, how do you travel to school every day? To which the learners will have a variety of answers like, I come to school on a bicycle, or I come to school by bus, or I come to school by train. Remember, the learners can also give one word answers, especially the learners from the lower grades, like by bus, by train, by cycle. To build on this activity idea and to bring more variety of nouns from the learners, you can continue by asking, what are things, places you see every day when coming to school? Learners will try to think of all the things they come across on the roads, like dress, clothing shop, ice cream shop, Sonu's house. Once you have received all the responses, you can write them down on the board for a visual scaffolding. And then tell the learners that every name and every word that we just used to refer to a person, place, animal, or thing are called nouns. Our next activity idea involves learners drawing and sketching. Here, ask the learners to draw any person, place, animal, or thing using a pencil or a pen. Ask them to draw it in a simple line drawing format. The sketches need not be detailed or accurate. The figures can be simple stick figures. Our next idea involves the kinesthetic element of learners moving around, collecting interesting items, and building things. Ask the learners to go outside the classrooms into the school playground and collect small pebbles, stones, sticks, and leaves. Once they return, ask them to use those items and their imagination to build things, animals, or persons. Allow the learners to get creative. In the same way, other items can be brought and various different items can be built. Here, make sure that you allow the learners to name everything, animal, and toy they create. thus allowing them to play with and create their own nouns. Origami is also one such idea that we can use to allow learners to create their own items and name them. The textbook or any simple storybooks can be used to conduct a evaluatory activity. We can ask learners to circle all the names of persons, places, animals, and things in the story. Additionally, for higher grades, if we have already introduced the different kinds of nouns, then we can ask them to circle only collective nouns or proper nouns.
Let's look at an activity on how we can teach verbs to our students in the classroom. Create chits with different verbs in it, like batting, crying, waving, and so on. This is a very simple activity, but the trick is to make the learners practice answering to the teacher in a full sentence in the given format using verbs. A learner will pick a chit and go to the front of the class and perform that action. The teacher can then ask,
What is happening?
to which the students can respond.
A boy is running.
When the next learner performs his or her action, the teacher can then ask again,
What is happening here?
to which the learners will use the given template again and answer.
The girl is jumping.
The teacher can also promote the element of peer learning and group work by encouraging learners to use the given template of asking the question and answering using verbs within themselves. Learner A can ask question to everyone, and different learners take turns to answer and ask the question again.
What is happening?
A boy is crying.
A boy is batting. The learners here get familiarized with verbs along with the scaffolding of nouns and using both nouns and verbs in a sentence on their own. The same evaluatory activity that we used for nouns can also be used here. You can encourage the learners to hunt for verbs along with nouns.
Vishesh, a tall boy, is at a fair. There are a lot of different rides he goes on. Once he enjoys the ride, he sees 3 stalls selling different things. He goes to the first and sees square boxes with fragrant blue roses. He walks around smelling the roses and feels happy. He then sees a man selling hot samosas at the stall close by. He goes over and buys one. Since it is very hot, he drops it down. He then buys another samosa and eats it this time and realizes it is very tasty. Now, let us look at the nouns mentioned so far. So we have Vishesh, stalls, boxes, roses, and samosas. Now let us look at the words that tell us more about these nouns or describe them. Vishesh, tall, stalls, 3, boxes, square, roses, blue and fragrant, samosas, hot and tasty. Now remember that any word that tells us more about the noun is called an adjective.
Where do we use adjectives in a sentence? Most adjectives are used before a noun. For example, the Rajans have a beautiful house. Here, beautiful is the adjective, whereas house is the noun. An adjective can also be used after a linking verb like be, look, or feel in a sentence. For example, the Rajan's house is beautiful. Here, is a linking verb and beautiful is the adjective. Types of adjectives. There are 6 types to adjectives. The first being adjectives of quality. They tell us all about the quality or state of a thing. For example, nice, large, beautiful, kind, etc. Second, adjectives of quantity. They tell us about the quantity or idea of a thing. For example, much, a little, more, enough, etc. Third, adjectives of number. They tell us about the number of the noun. For example, all, some, many, any, etc. Fourth, demonstrative adjectives. They point out to the nouns and are used before the noun. For example, this, that, he, she, it, etc. Fifth, interrogative adjectives. They are used to ask questions. For example, whose, who, which, what, etc. These are generally used before the noun. Last and the sixth, possessive adjectives. They show us possession. For example, my, our, his, her, your, own, their, etc. What are degrees of adjectives? There are 3 degrees of adjectives, namely positive, comparative, and superlative. The positive degree simply expresses a quality. For example, she is a beautiful girl. He is a good boy. The comparative degree is used to compare 2 things. For example, Anant is taller than Arun. This apple is bigger than the other one. The superlative degree is used to indicate the greatest degree of the quality it describes. For example, she is the tallest of all the girls in the class. He is the fastest among all the athletes. Fun facts. Good, other, and new are the most used adjectives. Lackluster, cold-blooded, premeditated, and worthless are few examples among the many adjectives coined by William Shakespeare in order to add detail to his scripts. When the exact word he wanted wasn't available, he would quite often combine verbs and nouns to create new adjectives. History. Adjective is derived from the Old French word adjectif and the Latin word adjectivum, meaning added to.
Now, let us try a different technique of addressing these grammar concepts. And let's look at how we can integrate the 3 concepts of nouns, verbs, and adjectives into a single activity. Start level 1 of the activity by collecting many small stationery and other items in a box. Select an item from the box, but do not show it to the learners. Explain the features of the item to the learners. Like, this item is soft. This item is long. This object has pointed edges. The learners must write these clues down in their notebooks along with their guesses about what object. They must not reveal or shout their guesses out loud. Now, for level 2, find a good source of light, preferably a window, or arrange for an artificial source of light using a torch in the absence of a window. Now, take the object that you have been describing out of the box and hold it behind a screen or a curtain so that the learners are not able to see the object directly. Alternatively, to increase participation, you can ask a learner to stand in front of you to hide the object. Now, use the object that you are holding in your hand and perform an action that can be done or that is usually done using that object. Like, in this case, act like writing in the air using the pen in your hand. Allow that action to cast its shadow on the wall. Ask the learners to observe the shadow. It looks like a pen. In the same way, if you were using adjectives to describe a book in the box, and if you were holding the book behind the curtain or behind the learner, then act like reading from the book and allow the shadow to be cast on the wall. Now, ask the learners to observe the shadow of the object being cast along with the action. Encourage them to guess the object.
You are reading from a book.
Till now, we have been looking at different activities which help learners to get introduced and explore them, and helped us evaluate the concepts of nouns, verbs, and adjectives. As a bonus idea, we have another evaluatory activity for you. This activity is called Teach Back activity or Teach Me Back. Remember to use this idea to evaluate the understanding of the learners about any and every concept that you teach in the classroom. For this method of evaluation, create small groups of learners. Assign a common concept to all the groups of learners. Ask them to discuss within their groups and prepare themselves to teach that concept to you. Tell them, I am now a student and you are my teachers. You have to teach me what are verbs. Can you do that? Think and discuss how you all can teach me the concept of verbs. Think and discuss how you all can teach me the concept of verbs.
Come on, teachers, let us look into what is the meaning of inferring, or how do we infer anything? When we look at anything, like let's say this girl, we can observe that the girl is widening her lips and cheeks and smiling.
And based on this, we infer that the girl is happy.
Now, when we look at the same girl moving her head up and down, which is us observing her nodding,
we can infer that she is agreeing to something.
just like this, if we see someone squint their eyes and wear glasses,
we can infer that the person is having issues to see properly or read something properly.
Now, let's see how this skill of inferring helps us when we read a poem from our textbook. Let's read the poem, Why God Made Teachers.
When God created teachers, He gave us special friends to help us understand His world and truly comprehend.
Let's read the lines again.
When God created teachers, He gave us special friends to help us understand His world and truly comprehend.
We can observe that the poet calls teachers as friends who help us understand the things around us. But the poet does not mean this literally, does he? What he actually means is that people who become our teachers in the course of our education help us by guiding us in the learning of important values and gaining necessary knowledge, which help us become better human beings. Thus, we must always strive both to read a poem and infer its actual meaning after observing the visible elements of the poem.
Let us sum up. Observation means to see, look, and notice what is visible to us and what is in front of us. But inferring something means to understand, conclude, and theorize the implicit meaning hidden beyond what is explicitly given. Observe this image carefully. Take a couple of seconds to look through all the objects that are visible to you. Now, I will ask you all to hunt for some objects. You must try to find those items in this image. Shall we start? Where is the red bag in this image? Use the chat box to answer the question. You can use any other object or the corners of the screen to locate the object and tell us all what you found. There is the red bag. Where is the laptop? There is the laptop. I'm going to make an inference. Looking at some specific object or multiple objects in this room, I can infer that the owner of this room likes music. How can I say that? Can you all find the object or objects that are making me infer that the owner of the room is a music lover? You could reply to us on the chat below. There's the music system that helps me understand or infer that the owner of the room might be a music lover. This is going to be the last inference from my side. And teachers, I encourage you all to check if I am making credible inferences by trying to observe the image for proofs. I think the owner of this room is a pet lover too. How do you think I drew this conclusion on this inference? Take your time and find the relevant proof from the image and let us know through the chat box. There's the cat that shows us that the owner of the room might be a pet lover too. These are some of the inferences that I was able to make by observing different things from the image. I can infer that the room belongs to a person who is very good in sports or arts because I can observe that there are many medals and trophies in the room. In the same way, she or he could be a collector, or she or he could also be a disorganized person.
A poem, If a Tree Could Talk. If a tree could talk, what would it say? Don't chop me down, just walk away. If a river could talk, what would it say? Don't dump in trash, throw it away. If the air could talk, what would it say? The factories must learn to keep smoke away. If the animals could talk, what would they say? Help us to live, we wish to stay. If the earth could talk, what would it say? Protect me by making every day Earth Day.
Let us now use the skill of observing different items and inferring for the poems from our textbook. Many or all poems have this element of showing something or telling something on the surface level. but then meaning something deep and meaningful, which usually requires deep observation and mindful inference. It is now time for us to infer from this poem. What were you able to infer? But before I ask you, what did you infer from this poem? Let me ask you, what did you observe too? Let us know about your observations as well as inference from the 4 lines of the poem. Now that we've come to the end of our module, let's try and see where we can find the resources we've been talking about to you all throughout our module. You will find it on our app, Teachopia. Once you download the app and open it, it will show you a home page. And once this screen appears on your mobile phones, you can click on the content button right below. The content will lead you to 2 kinds of content: curricular content and other content. You can choose the grade that you want to prepare on. Once you do so, it will open to the various subjects that are available: math, EVS, and English for 4th grade. When we choose English, we're going to get a list of chapters available for the subject and the grade. Once you choose your grade and your language and the chapter that you require, you will be given a list of resources like concept guide and lesson plans, which are both available in English and Kannada, and the newest edition called audio visual resources. This is what we've been telling you all throughout our module. These resources will lead you to 3 kinds of audio-visual files, which are hard words, poetry recitation, and story reading. Clicking on those will lead you to videos that you can use in your classroom to explain hard words, to have their right kind of pronunciation. You can also use them to recite a poem with the right kind of intonation and had the story read out for the children in the form of a video. Thank you very much for your patience, and we hope you all had a lovely learning experience. You can wait for more of these in the upcoming months. Thank you.